Until we meet again 13, hit subscribe now. All right, we are back for part 2 of the Survivor series, and this one is Surviving Prison. Again, my name is Scott Ramsey, founder of Until We Meet Again 13. This is my personal account of Surviving Prison. I did a 30-minute long talk in part 1, and we got to about the halfway point, so I want to keep on going. My editing software has a problem with these large videos, so I'm hoping that I can keep it broken up the way I did and have it all good. But little housekeeping, I need you to please hit the subscribe button and the bell button. That's a notification button. If you hit that, you'll join my channel and you'll join us in my community. And every time I put out new content, you'll be notified of that by hitting the bell button. And that really helps the page. It really helps me personally. It helps me with getting my story out there and getting my voice. So if you wouldn't mind, please hit subscribe, hit the notification button, and please like and comment on this video. Tell me how I'm doing. Let me know what I need to tweak, what I need to change. I'm still new at this. I'm trying to get a lot better at it. I did a whole run of recovery journal videos, and I'll show you a couple highlights here. There's 2 or 3 of them, but I did the best I could on those, and those are just basically general techniques to get through things. Not stories about survival. These are actual techniques, recovery techniques. I did one on knowing your triggers. I did one on having gratitude. I did one on checking in the mirror. I did one on a lot of things, and all of those are good recovery techniques, good recovery techniques to help you recover from whatever it is. And I personally use drug addiction as my basis for that, but believe me, those things work for every mental health issue that you can have. You are in recovery when you're dealing with even depression or anxiety, something as simple as that. You have to be in recovery. You have to be building a healthy lifestyle. And basically what recovering means is you're recovering from the negative aspects of that mental health illness. And so you're recovering and you're living a better version of your life. And that's what these tools are for. Check them out. I'll put some links in the description, and you can look at them if you want. There's a lot of them, so I probably won't put all the links in there, but I'll do the best I can to make them available to you. But please, again, subscribe, like, comment, do the whole kit and caboodle. You guys know what you have to do. You guys are professional YouTubers. Do your thing. Please get this out there. Please get it out there. This is important to us. This is important to my community. It's important to Until We Meet Again 13. We're growing. Join us on Instagram right there. We are roughly 2,000 strong on Instagram. We're roughly 9,000 strong on TikTok right there. So follow us at Until We Meet Again 13 on Instagram, Until We Meet Again 13 on TikTok. And again, subscribe, like, comment, do all your business right there. Okay, getting back in. Part 2 of Surviving Prison. It's super fun. No, not fun at all. But what I got to my story about getting out of solitary confinement. And that sucked. 4 months. I did 4 months in solitary confinement for a scuffle. Well, more of a jumping type situation over commissary, over some stupid food. And, it is what it is. It was time. It sucked. Doing solitary confinement time is hard time. But lucky for me, I was able to reach out to my father. He came up and visited me once, so I got him myself for a couple hours that time. You're able to get books, so I got my pops to send me quite a few books, and I was able to read books. And then they have like a little book cart that comes around. Basically, I lived off my little radio, and I lived off books. And you don't really get to talk to anyone in solitary, so I loved the weekdays because I would listen to talk radio, and those people, those personalities kind of became my friends, for lack of a better word. And then on the weekends, Loveline would come on, and if no one knows what Loveline is, you gotta check it out. It's great. It's like a sex talk with a comedian and Dr. Drew, who is a clinical psychologist or whatever, and they deal with sexual issues of all nature and sizes and shapes and stuff. So it was a very popular show back in the day, and it used to come on the radio, broadcast super late at night, and I would be up and listen to it. But so anyway, get out of solitary confinement, and I've got the rest of my sentence to do, and I maintained pretty well. I worked out a lot. That's how I got to know the Italian guys that I got to know. It was surreal, some of the experiences I had. I remember one particular time, it was near my birthday, I think it was near my birthday in the spring, but I was out on the rec yard, and we had bocce ball courts, and bocce ball is an Italian game. So these Italian mobsters were playing, and when I say real, I mean these guys were legit Italian mobsters. These were high-level ranking mob bosses or capos or whatever you want to call it in the Italian mafia, and they were on the back end of some long sentences that they had gotten in the 70s and 80s. And, so I got to know them, got to like them, they liked me. They didn't really understand the whole tattoo thing, but they liked me because I worked out with them and because I knew my shit when it came to football, and that was speak to them. So anyway, got to know them, got to work out with them. It kind of did feel like I was in a reality TV show. I got to tell you, when I was working out with John Gotti's son-in-law, it did feel a little weird, but I definitely wasn't in a reality TV show. It was prison, and it sucked. So I read, I worked out, I got in really good shape, I ate really good. I mean, I would go through and test my body. I would take in large amount of calories to put on weight, and then I would shed calories, just to learn how my body operated. I mean, you've literally got nothing but time, and you end up doing a lot of reading and a lot of thinking. And so that's the thing about prison. What people don't understand and what it is to be in prison is you make a mistake in life. And typically, if you're in prison, it's probably the worst mistake you've ever made. And you get caught doing that. It's against the law. You get arrested. You get put in jail in a county facility, and then you get sentenced. A judge, a prosecutor deemed you bad enough to go to prison, and you are kept inside of that mistake that you made, the worst mistake you ever made in your entire life. You are stuck in that mistake while the entire world spins around year after year after year after year after year without you, and you are stuck living in that mistake, and you lose your life, you lose time. And I did 5 years, and to a lot of people that sounds like a lot, but there's a ton of people in there that would have gladly given anything to have a 5-year sentence compared to what they were in there for. There was a lot of people in there from the quote-unquote war on drugs that, in the late 80s, they had gotten arrested on small amounts of crack cocaine, and that there was mandatory sentencing minimums back then, and these guys that were teenagers, 18, 19-year-old kids that were getting 30-year sentences for a pretty small amount of crack. And that, crack's terrible, don't get me wrong, but since then, there's been more humanity added to the laws and added to the sentencing guidelines, and some of those mandatory minimums have been thrown out. And believe me, there's groups everywhere that are fighting to get rid of those crazy mandatory minimums. To give a 19-year-old kid a 30-year prison sentence in federal custody where there's no parole, that's a long time. They are not getting out until they are almost 50 years old. They're going to be in their mid-40s, and that's a lifetime. I mean, that is basically the better chunk of the first half of your life. And you get out and you don't know anything about anything. You have completely been locked away. I mean, imagine being locked up 30 years ago and coming out today. cell phones, the internet, all of that stuff, none of that would have been around. I mean, you watch some of these movies like Shawshank Redemption and you talk about institutionalized, man, I mean, seriously, if you had been put away when these guys were put away and came out today and saw Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, all this crazy stuff that we're using to communicate right here and near. I'm using a platform, a social media platform, to tell you about surviving prison and surviving sexual abuse and surviving the other things that I did in this video series. And, you know, wow, I mean, people would be like, holy crap, what is the world? What are we doing with the world right now? I mean, everything is accessible. At the click of a button, you can find information on anyone, anything. Everyone is available. Everyone is fair game. I mean, I did a whole series last night on surviving bullying, and I used a DM that I'd gotten on my Instagram page. Please follow and DM me anytime, because that's typically what I'm using for these Survivor Series stories. Is I use DMs that I get on Instagram and we relate it back to my life. I apply my personal experience and try to teach you how I got through it myself. Not a lot of people are writing me saying they went through prison, but I thought it would be worthy since this is the hardest thing I've ever had to survive. So yeah, back to business, I guess. Hopefully you will have found this interesting to date or so far. And if you have, please hit subscribe. Please like, comment, and share this video. But I'm going to get to the end. I'm going to wrap this up and I'm going to talk about the end of my sentence and getting out and what it was actually like to re-enter society. I mean, in summation, time is time. It just, each day is basically a repetition of the day before, and you get in a routine and you get in that groove, and that's how time starts to fly. And you get comfortable, you get set in a routine, like I said, and once you get set in that routine, it's really easy to just live almost like a very OCD structured lifestyle, and time does move. It moves slow. I mean, don't get me wrong. 5 years felt like an eternity. It felt like an eternity because, I mean, I was antsy. I was still in my 20s. I was really antsy and really, you know, coming off of a methamphetamine withdrawal, manifesting bipolar symptoms. All this was happening and I had no idea what was going on with my head. I had a massive imbalance going on up there, and I didn't really have any of these tools that I talked about in my recovery journal videos. I didn't know how to take my power back. I didn't know really much of anything. I did know how to check in. That's a video I highly recommend you watching. It's something I learned in prison. Basically, if you have a problem, you look in the mirror and you talk to your reflection about that problem. And that's not talking to a therapist. It's not talking to a friend. And you don't have to have a lot of courage, but if you have enough courage to talk to your own reflection about your problem, you give that problem a little bit of power, and you can then take the power back from that problem. And that's something that's innate in surviving. It's innate in surviving that everyone has that instinct. You either sink or you swim. You're either a survivor or a victim. And everyone, you know, growing up wants to think that they're unique. And their situation was so unique, but I assure you, from DMing with all you guys, there are a lot of people out there struggling with the exact same issues. Sexual abuse, self-harming, bullying, cyberbullying, you name it, sexual identity, being openly gay, being openly trans, transitioning, being openly bisexual, all sorts of sexuality issues come into play in today's age. And, you know, that's just something that you have to learn to survive. And that's what this series is about. But this particular series is about me surviving prison. So without further ado, I will talk about how I ended up out of prison. I finally finished, and it was 2007 when I got home. I was 30 years old. If you're doing the math, that makes me 43 now. It was basically right around this time of year. I got out on October 7th, and so we're pretty close to Halloween. It was pretty close to Halloween then, but you know, I had these pending charges hanging over my head, so that prevented me from doing any programs. It prevented me from going into a halfway house, so I had to quote unquote what they call maxing out my sentence. So I did every single day of my sentence other than the good time that I earned that wasn't taken away for little scuffles. I did do one other stint in solitary confinement. It was a shorter one. It was only a couple weeks. A weapon was found in my cell. It was not mine, it was my cellmate's, but because he wasn't willing to fess up to it, they put us both in the hole, and we stayed in solitary confinement for a couple weeks until he finally was like, look, I'm feel sorry for you, you gotta go. So he admitted to what he did. We both ended up getting out. It was weird, you know, it is what it is, but we got out. So I did 2 stints in solitary confinement. I had so many fights that I don't even know what to do with. I watched a fight. This is crazy, but these guys were playing spades in Memphis, and it was 2 young kids and 2 older kids, and one of the young kids had a really hot mouth on him. He was talking shit like you would not believe to one of these older guys, and this older guy was a biker. He was a rough and tough guy. He was not having this little punk young kid telling him all this stuff, and the kid said something he shouldn't have said, used a word that you do not use in prison, and he said it, and the guy just got up, walked back to his locker, took the lock off of his lock, dropped it in his laundry bag, and walked up to this kid and smacked him dead in the face with a lock in a bag, and it knocked this kid's eyeball completely out of his face. It was hanging by its optical nerve, and they had to take him to the hospital. They took the guy that used the lock and put him in solitary, and I never saw either one of these 2 guys ever again. Lord only knows what happened. Hopefully that guy was actually okay, but I mean, I saw some extremely violent things, and I had some extremely violent things happen to me. Nothing that was super life-threatening. I got into a couple fights, some bad ones. I got hit really hard by a guy that was trying to get out of a gambling debt, and he saw me as a little white guy, and this was a gigantic dude, and he just hauled off and hit me square in the face for no reason at all other than I was trying to hand him a roll of toilet paper. But he was trying to get out of his block, get put in solitary confinement because he knew he was getting ready to get shipped off, so he was trying to get out of a gambling debt, and I just happened to be at the wrong place, wrong time. So that kind of stuff, I mean, you're in jail, dude. You're in prison. You get no sympathy from anyone. The guards don't care. It just is what it is. You live, you survive, and you get through it, or you don't. And if you don't, I don't really know what that means, because, I mean, you kind of have to get through it. You don't really have much of a choice. And so, yeah, you got to get through it. And when you get through it, when you get to the end, you get out. And for me personally, because I had these pending charges, I was released into handcuffs, marched through the Pittsburgh airport, flown back to Virginia from Elkton, Ohio. I didn't mention, I was actually classified to a jail in Elkton, Ohio. I should have mentioned that earlier. From Oklahoma City, I flew Con Air to Elkton, Ohio, and that was the home away from home for 3.5 years, I guess. I did 18 months in Memphis and 3.5 years in Elkton, Ohio. But I released from Elkton, got flown back down to Fairfax County, which is right outside of DC, bailed out on the drug charges I had, and I basically started all over again. I was on bail from those charges, but lucky for me, I had 5 years time served, and when it came time for sentencing on that, I got quite lucky. I just happened to catch a really actually hardcore judge that had been giving out a lot of time prior to me, but he didn't have the right report on me, and he saw that I had done 5 years, and he looked at me, and I had some witnesses, some character witnesses with me, and he said, hey, it looks like you've gotten your life back together, but if I ever see you again, you're going to do every single day of this 10-year suspended sentence. So he gave me 10 years, he suspended it. All I had to do was stay out of trouble for the duration of my probation, which was 5 years. That was a long time ago, made it through, no problem. After I got out, I wasn't going back. I was not going back under any circumstances. I was one of the few people that actually learned my lesson while I was in there. And, you know, I had, 5 years got me pretty clean. I got the meth out of my system after about 2 years. My emotions started getting back into check. And again, I'm bipolar, and I didn't even know it at the time. So, the mood swings that I had, the ups and downs and all arounds, and, that's what being bipolar is. I'm bipolar type 2, so my normal, it's like this, and then I dip down to depression, and then normal, and then dip down into depression. And if I'm unmedicated and just walking around day after day, I make really bad decisions when I'm in my depressive states, especially with relationships or jobs, but especially with relationships. I ended relationships for no reason at all, and it hurt a lot of people, and got a lot of bad karma, I'm sure, in the love department, because I made bad decisions. I just made these decisions, and eventually I started seeing a shrink, and I started trying to figure out what was going on with me. Why was I doing these bad things? Why was I doing these irrational things? And once you make a decision like that, sometimes it's too late to reverse it. You can't just say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I broke your heart, let's get back together." It's too late. And so I started seeing a therapist and just started talking about what was going on in my life. And 6 months into seeing this lady, she told me, "Hey, I know you started this and you told me you didn't ever want to get on medication because you're, sober and you don't feel like that's appropriate. But you have a very strong chemical imbalance going on in your head. I'm pretty sure you're bipolar. You ought to see a psychiatrist." So I buckled down, did it. Finally, after much collusion from the therapist, she, presented me with pros and cons, and I finally saw the psychiatrist, and I went through a gamut of medications before I ended up on a regimen that worked for me, and now I live a fairly normal life. My bipolar disorder doesn't act up often. I have some anxiety, but on the whole, as long as I stick to my lane, keep things relatively normal, try to stay out of super rough relationships. Not always the easiest thing in the world, but if I can keep my relationship stuff to a minimum and stay happy and stay adult and stay in adult situations, I can usually manage my anxiety pretty well. I have a really bad habit of rocking. I rock back and forth, and that's just basically from my childhood. When I was growing up, my parents, they weren't get on the ground and play with me type parents. I was to be seen and not heard, so I listened to music and I sat in a lazy boy recliner and rocked all the time. So that was just something that is natural for me. It feels very comforting to rock back and forth. And believe me, I drive girlfriends, coworkers, everyone crazy, because after you rock in something long enough, inevitably it starts to squeak. So that's just something that I do, but it's hilarious. My coworkers would laugh their asses off if they heard this video, but anyway, maybe they will. Maybe they'll subscribe, because that would be really nice. We need as many subscribers as we can, and hopefully they won't judge me too much for the content of this video, but most of them know. I don't hide it from people. I let them know, I'm an ex-con. I'm proud of that, because I survived. I survived something that 90% of the world wouldn't be able to survive. I personally didn't think I could survive, but I survived it. I made it out alive, made it out with all my fingers and toes detached, no extra holes poked in me, and I walked out in handcuffs, but those handcuffs were taken off, and my father, bless his heart, picked me up from the jail that I was bailed out from. It was an early evening, and we were 2 hours away from home, and he said, "You can have anything you want. We're going to stop and we're going to get any food you want. You want a steak? You want a piece of fish? What do you want?" I looked at him and I was like, I would give anything for a large vanilla milkshake from McDonald's. And those of you that know me will find that pretty laughable, because I do love vanilla milkshakes and I'm a bit of a sweet fiend. But that's what I wanted. So we went to McDonald's. I got a Big Mac meal, got me a very large vanilla milkshake, and it was probably the best thing that I'd had in forever. And I enjoyed, spending that ride home with my father. It was really weird. I hadn't seen him in a long time. I told you I did the time as opposed to letting it do me. So I asked people to please not visit me at all. My family came to visit me one time, and my brother was there, and he came high on heroin. And after that, I just decided I didn't really want to see anyone anymore. I did have my dad come up while I was in solitary that one time, but that was really mainly to just get out of my cell more than anything. But so I hadn't seen my family in a while, and when I got home, everything was really short. That's super weird to say, but I was big. I came out and I was really big because I worked out all the time, and I was I was really ripped. And when you're in jail, all the ceilings of all the buildings are like warehouses. So they're, 50-foot, 40-foot ceilings with, open rafters and all this stuff. So you don't have normal ceilings ever for years and years and years and years and years. And you just aren't around ceilings like that ever. Even in the libraries and even in, some of the school areas, there just isn't ceilings like that. So when I got home and I walked into my parents' house, who they were nice enough to put me up. I slept on a mattress in a corner of one of their rooms, and all I had to my name was the little sweatsuit that I walked out of jail in and a bunch of clothes that didn't fit from when I was a junkie. It just, all the ceilings were really low, and I could reach my hand and touch the ceiling, and it was the wildest thing. And my parents' animals looked old. They had, gotten, it was 10 years later. I hadn't seen. It was just wild, man. Everything was short and older, and it was quiet. When you're in a prison with all these guys, it was an open facility. I wasn't in an area where there was cells, so it was like little, almost like cubicles, for lack of a better word. And there was two people, you had a bunk in each cubicle, and, there was a person on the top and the bottom, and you had two lockers, and that was your cube, and sometimes when the prison got a little more crowded, they would put a third bunk in, and some of the cells that were a little larger would get that third bunk, and you were stuck with three. But once you'd been there a little while, you progressed to the two-man cells, and I can tell you story after story after story after story about the stuff that actually went on during my time in prison. And maybe I'll do like a prison stories series or something like that, because I'm sure that would be really entertaining to some people. But I'm not glamorizing prison in this particular scenario because it sucked. It was horrible. But I made it through, and I made it through like a piece of steel. I came out and I was honed, I was strong, I was sober, I was clean, and I was determined to not go back, to keep my body in shape, to get a job and get my life going. I had lost everything. I had lost my girlfriend. I had lost all my quote-unquote raver family friends. Everyone was gone. All of them gone. It was just me starting over from scratch with a long record, and that was hard to deal with because you have to try to get a job, and you have to try to get a good job if you want to get going with your life. I mean, you can't work at McDonald's forever. So, what I did is I went to an NA meeting. I think I had been home 3 or 4 nights, and I looked up NA meetings, and I went to an NA meeting, and I started just standing up at every meeting saying, "Hi, my name's Scott. I'm an addict. I've been clean X number of years, but I'm really kind of starting over because I just got out of prison. I need a job. Who's going to give me a job?" And after I did that for about 3 weeks, I finally got offered a pretty decent construction gig. And I translated that and used it and gained some experience, and I learned how to do what I do now. But I have a decent career. I have a nice house. I mean, I have 2 kids. I have everything that a guy could ask for. I have been divorced. That was pretty rough, but that's relevant to adults, not kids usually. But I've dealt with just about every type of heartbreak. I've dealt with every type of abuse and self-harming and bullying and all the things that you guys DM me about. I've lived it, loved it, survived it. But this prison bit, that was it, man. It was really, really tough. So I survived, I made it out alive. And one last story that I want to talk about, it's I had not seen the night in a very long time, because you do not get to go outside at night when you are locked up. Everything closes in the daytime and you get in before dark, and that's for security purposes. So I hadn't seen a moon or stars or the cool of a night or anything like that in a really, really long time. So that very first night that I got home, I went outside and I just stood outside, and it was like October in Virginia, and it's usually cool, and it was really cool. And I just remember breathing in the air and looking at this big bright moon and all these stars, and it was just wild, man. I was so overjoyed at the fact that I could just stand outside. I mean, I literally, borrowed my dad's cell phone and texted my ex-girlfriend who had been home for years. And I was just like, did this happen to you? Were you, just shocked by the night and by how short everything was? And she laughed and she was like, yes, that's the way it is. And it was just really funny. I was so grateful to be able to see a moon and see the stars. And so, that was just part of surviving. You get out and, all these little things that you take for granted, that everyone takes for granted in today's day and age. You don't understand how quickly that stuff can be taken away from you. So there's a very important video in the recovery series about having gratitude. I'll put it right there. But you gotta be grateful, man. You've gotta stay grateful for the things you have, because they can be taken away at a moment's notice. And I've lived that. I've lived it. I've lived it severely. I've lived it, multiple times, where things that I thought were stable have been yanked out from under me, and it's the worst of the worst feeling. And that really, really requires you to dig deep inside. But what I want to sum up, if I can survive 5 years in prison, then you guys can survive what's going on in your life. You can survive that bully. You can survive self-harming. You can talk to me about it, and we can work through and get you some strategies. Listen to some of those videos about taking your power back, about learning your triggers, about using a recovery journal, about free writing. I mean, I've gone through a lot of techniques in my videos about how to actually survive, and not just talking about it, but how to actually survive. The things you have to do on a day-to-day basis to make recovery possible, to make you be able to get through that day, to get to the next day, because we are continuously taking our lives one day at a time, building one day at a time upon one day at a time upon one day at a time, until we've got weeks, until we've got months, until we've got years built into our recovery. And then we can lean on that and stay positive, keep that attitude going. And that's when you start learning to give back. And that's something that's what gratitude is all about. You give back, you help other people, and by helping other people, you're going to get more out of it than they are. Trust me when I say that. By doing acts of service, you're going to be happier than the person that's actually receiving it. They may feel awkward asking for help. There's a very large stigma around asking for help, and I've seen it manifested in my in my significant other's brother. He was terrified to ask for help with some specific issues going on in his life. So I see grown men scared to ask for help. And I see people all the time scared to go to a therapist, scared to address their issues, scared to take their power back from these issues, letting their past dictate who they are, letting their past run their life. You can't do that. You've got to be grateful for the things you have. Take your power back from the bad things that you don't have, and the negative things that are in your life. You put them down on a piece of paper, take their power back, and then be grateful for the things you do have, and be grateful for your recovery, be grateful for your survival, be grateful for the things that you made it through. You will make it through high school, you will make it through college, you will make it through that bullying, you will make it through. And when you get through, you will look in the mirror and be so proud of yourself for surviving. And that self-esteem will get built into your life as you get older, as you progress, as you get days built into your recovery, you will find strength. I promise you, you will find the strength that you do not think you have here listening to this video. You will find it. It's there. You just got to work at it. And that's what the Recovery Journal is all about. Look at those videos. Check them out. There's going to be some links in the description of this video. Follow them. You know, just watch them. They're all really good techniques, and I dive pretty deep into them. So if you subscribe to the channel, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Hit the notification button so you can be notified when more of this Survivor series comes out. I've got a really good idea coming up next that I'm going to talk about surviving addiction and surviving my specific drug addiction. Be talking a lot about different drugs and how they make you feel and how the withdrawals are for those drugs. So that's just a little preview about what I'm going to do next. But if you don't hit the notification button, you won't know when that video comes out. So please hit subscribe, hit the notification button, like, comment, and please share this video with someone that needs it. That's what this is all about. We're helping other people get through their problems. 1 in 4 people are struggling with mental health issues. So lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of us are struggling. And these videos, if they do nothing else, I hope they help someone get through one night. If I can survive 5 years of prison, you can survive what you're going through. And if you need my help, go to Instagram, follow me, DM me anytime, day or night. I listen to my phone religiously. I try to answer every DM right away. And I will help you. I will help you. I will help you. I will talk to you. I will coach you through it. I'm not a therapist. I can't heal you, but I can help you. I can help you develop techniques to get through these problems that you've got going on in your life. So please follow on Instagram, DM me anytime, day or night, and I'll try my best to help you get through what you got to get through. So keep going, survive. That's what this is all about. Survive, survive, survive. This is Until We Meet Again 13, Scott Ramsey, Crew for Life. Peace. Thank you for listening. Subscribe. I love you guys.
We love you. Until we meet again 13, subscribe now.